Welcome to episode 86 of the Search with Candor podcast, recorded on Thursday, the 5th of November 2020. My name is Mark Williams-Cook, and today we are going to be joined by Roman Sadowski, who is the head of SEO for Smyths Toys, and he's going to be talking to us about e-commerce SEO and the future of e-commerce online. Before we kick off, I'd like to tell you this podcast is very kindly sponsored by Sitebulb. So I've spoken about them pretty much every episode now for the last few weeks as our sponsor, and every episode I talk about a new kind of feature or thing about Sitebulb that I like or I find particularly helpful. Because as hopefully you know by now, it is a tool that I and many of the people in the SEO community use in-house and in agencies. And the thing I want to talk about on Sitebulb today is actually their crawler. So there's lots of different ways to kind of crawl the web and render web pages. And a really cool thing about Sitebulb is that when you're doing a crawl and rendering JavaScript through Sitebulb, it uses an evergreen Chromium rendering engine. So it's going to be super close to what Google is seeing. And this is really, really important when you're trying to work out what's going on your site and how Google's interpreting it. So as hopefully we all know, Google goes through, for want of a better way to describe it, there's two kind of phases of crawling and indexing, whereby Googlebot visits a web page, grabs the URL and gets the kind of raw HTML. And because of how lots of modern websites work with various JavaScript frameworks, such and such, this may not be the equivalent to what an end user browsing the site would see. So it does go through this rendering process at Google with Caffeine, their indexer, and at that point, using the same evergreen engine, it renders the JavaScript and tries to understand what it's seeing. So you can, of course, do HTML, raw HTML crawls as well with Sitebulb, which is how they have that great feature we talked about before, which was comparing the JavaScript and non-JavaScript version for things like where links are getting injected or modified on the page. But using this evergreen Chromium renderer means that they're able to do things like page speed reports, mobile friendly reports, code coverage, all of this stuff as Google would see it, as Google's going to judge it, they can run through their crawl and give you a report on. So it's really, really, really helpful to be able to see site-wide, okay, what's our page speed looking at? What's the time to interactive? When's the DOM ready? How long is the first page load? What's the time to first byte? All of these things really, really helpful. Of course, if you've got enough traffic, you'll have the Chrome user experience reports with some of those metrics coming through Google Search Console, but this is a really good way to get a snapshot of your site and really get the detail of, is there specific page templates, for instance, that are causing you issues. So Sitebulb got a special deal for Search with Candor listeners. You can go to sitebulb.com/SWC and you can get a 60-day extended trial of Sitebulb instead of the usual 14 days. No credit card required, so it's all free. Go and give it a go. And today, as I said, we are joined by Roman Sadowski, who is the senior SEO at Smyths Toys. He's been there, as far as I can see, 6.5 years. Is that right, Roman?
That's right, yeah, 6.5 years.
So I'll let you do kind of an introduction to yourself at a moment. I had a quick look, poke around the Smyths Toys site with some tools like SEMrush, which suggests you're getting kind of in the 8 figures per month of organic traffic worldwide. So it looks like a really big site. Really interested to talk to you and your experiences you've had with that. But could you just give us an intro about yourself and maybe how you got into SEO and how you ended up at Smyths, please?
Sure, no problem. Hi, Mark. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm thrilled to be here. Just want to say this is a great podcast in SEO community. So I've been following you for over a year now. Obviously, I haven't listened to all the episodes, but this stuff is great. You kick ass, keep up good work.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm Roman Sadowski. I suppose my story with SEO started back in 2004, 2005. I cannot say that I started to work in SEO in 2005. It wasn't my full-time job at the time, but it was a rather pursuit of income in my spare time, and that led me to SEO. So I started to build websites, and obviously SEO was a default source of traffic for me at that time, as I didn't have any marketing budget. So obviously, to make any money back then, I knew that I had to figure out how to find keywords online and how to rank websites. There were very days where keyword tag was a ranking factor. So I don't know if you remember those days, Mark, but
Yes, I do.
yeah, it was very easy to get traffic. Um, Obviously, a lot changed ever since in SEO, but I suppose I've learned SEO by doing over the years, and it came naturally to me. I suppose it became my hobby. So over the years, I started and stopped a number of online ventures, which always involved some kind of marketing strategy, and SEO always been a core of it. I started to work in Smith's Toys in 2014, and I suppose that was my first true full-time SEO position. So I am responsible for SEO for the company, but I am also involved in web analytics, web tracking, reporting, or on-site search optimization, which all that ties in nicely with SEO anyway. So yeah, I was lucky enough to be a part of our expansion to UK, and then almost 2 years ago to Europe. We launched our website in Europe in March last year. So yeah, it's been a very fascinating few years so far, with site migrations and all sorts of mad projects we worked on. And obviously this year is different again with COVID and lockdowns.
Yeah.
That brings, new challenges to SEO, you know, I suppose to all websites. So yeah, life is only getting better. And yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
I think it's interesting. So anyone that started SEO in early 2000s, 2004, 2005, the story is really similar in that it was essentially people building and SEOing their own sites
That's right.
because there wasn't anything like Brighton SEO, for instance,
That's
that
right.
didn't exist. There was certainly nothing happening at colleges, universities talking about SEO. There wasn't even many books on the subject, was there? There was like
No,
very few actual printed books, and it was mainly kind of people just learning off forums. And like you say, because I think it wasn't taken that seriously by big businesses, a lot of the difficulty was a lot lower, and it was actually a lot of just people at home getting sometimes a lot of traffic
yeah.
because they'd invested some time looking into that. So yeah, I think that's a fairly sort of common story if you did start that long ago, sort of being self-made. And obviously now moving into a company where you're dealing with millions of visitors per month, that's obviously again very, very different from that beginning. So what does your day to day look like? What's an average day or an average week look like for you managing the SEO for such a large e-com site?
Well, obviously the current situation is a bit unusual because of COVID. We try to be in office as much as possible, but recently we cannot be in office at all because Ireland went into level 5 lockdown as of last week. So yeah, so we all work from home and catching up on chats and hangouts and stuff. These days, my day is split between ongoing SEO projects, monitoring, and training. As you can imagine, our industry is dynamic and seasonal very much, and things change quite a bit, I suppose, compared to other industries, which could be much more static. So all these circumstances are challenging for SEO if we want to stay ahead and prioritize work. So we try to apply 80-20 rule to all we do. We tend to work on projects depending on what is important to the business at the time. So we have a fairly good weekly SEO report, which contains priority keywords for us and concepts that are important to the business. So that data is being driven by other teams. So on principle, it is fresh and highly prioritized in terms of what is important to the business at the time. So this is our base for any ongoing work in terms of SEO. Apart from that, we would also look into any underperforming categories across the business on a regular basis. We would then break them down and brainstorm ideas for improvement. We also try to get ahead in Google for those products and concepts that are scheduled to go online in the future. Lots of kind of, not loads, but few daunting tasks, like on a weekly basis, we would go through our SEO reports generated in Google Analytics, where we track empty pages, 404s, any faulty pages that needs to be fixed. So that allows us to keep the link equity, under the domain and keep the index neat for Google. What else? This year, for example, I designed and ran an SEO training session for all teams involved in the web content. It is important to us that all relevant teams know what SEO is and are SEO aware. As you can imagine, all the teams in the company have an impact on rankings. So we like the free flow of expertise between the teams, and all teams have access to an necessary data for their own decision making. So by training and having this kind of culture allows us to respond quickly to trends in Google, and also spot problems very quickly, because things do break all the time. I suppose I always try to stay tuned and keep an eye on any new concepts or trends in SEO. As you know, the whole thing is changing very quickly. So I would spend a little bit of time every day reading SEO blogs and news and tweets to ensure that I don't miss anything. And obviously, I follow your tips on LinkedIn. Well done, very good. A lot of happening at work at the moment. But last year was different again, as we all focus was in Germany, launching the websites and fixing all after go live issues and training the teams over there and build SEO strategies for them. So we spent a good amount of time in Cologne last year, and obviously this year it's different again.
It was really interesting to me. You focused there on the internal training and building that SEO awareness throughout the company. So as coming from agency side, that's something I've seen multiple times that's been massively overlooked in some larger companies we've worked with, where there's kind of a core SEO team, and then lots of people who, as you rightly say, have an impact on SEO. So it might be product specialists, content writers, people, developers, or people that are making decisions about how the site's, new pages, structures, categories, don't know anything about SEO. So then there's always this back and forward of someone does some work, and then it almost needs to go through this bottleneck of the few SEO people to quote unquote, SEO it, or in some cases just completely kick it back and say, you can't do this. And we found ourselves actually doing exactly what you said, where they've not had the capability in house, which is actually saying, look, you need to train these other people up, and trying to run these kind of courses over time to build up everyone's knowledge. Because I think, like you say, especially in larger companies, you can save so much time, so much money, and increase your effectiveness if you're not having to essentially redo work that other people are doing, and they're building it in to everything they're doing, right?
Absolutely. It's hard, especially for large organizations to create culture like that and break those boundaries between the teams, because it is hard. People are kind of focused on their own things, and they don't kind of have time to have expertise in other things. But the whole thing, it has to be interconnected, has to be one. And as you said, it does save a lot of time going forward, because you don't have to redo those things later on, and you can get really good content right from the start, when the team that is responsible for uploading the content on the website know about keywords, know about demand, have access to data and stats. They are aware of what people search for, and we can then match content on the website with keyword demand in Google and stuff like that. So yeah, it's crucial to connect all the teams and work towards one goal, I suppose. Yeah.
You mentioned as well on your kind of day to day there, you're looking at this kind of fresh, you're keeping things fresh, and you're looking at specifically, I wanted to pick up on, you said underperforming categories. So categories where you've defined yourself as underperforming. So it'd be interesting, I think, for our listeners what do you class as underperforming? Is that somewhere, that you've ranked previously before and you're not anymore, or somewhere you just think you should be ranking because you've got the content? How do you prioritize that? How do you decide kind of what's underperforming and what's not on the radar?
I suppose obviously we have our own KPIs that we track on a weekly basis, and this is our base to see and measure which category is kind of there at the top and which one is lagging. And if you watch that data and stats every week, you kind of know, and you can see straight away that one department could be lagging, or you can recognize patterns and trends. So whatever the KPI might be, if we see a category, or line or anything, or even whole department that is behind, we kind of go into it and break it down in pieces and see what's going on. And often, once you do that, you can really find a lot of little nuggets that are very easy to fix. And then obviously, over time, it works pretty much, so what we define, we're basically using our KPIs, internal KPIs, to define which category is underperforming. Obviously, that's based on rankings per priority keywords.
I think that it's safe to say whatever you're doing is working, because again, looking at external tools over the last 5 or 6 years, it looks to me like your organic traffic has, the increase has been massive. We're talking like 3 or 4 times. So I'm interested in, when you joined, what were your kind of immediate priorities as you came into the role versus what you're looking at now? Did this exist already? Was there some SEO knowledge in the business? Did you inherit technical debt? Because again, what I'd like to get out of this question, I guess, is there's going to be people moving into new e-commerce roles, and they're listening to you, and it sounds like you've got everything, at least it sounds like everything is kind of nicely organized, you've got a flow and you're really on top of things. And there's going to be people moving into roles, and I know from personal experience, sometimes you move into a role and it looks like everything's going to be great, it's a really well-known company, and you arrive and you weren't kind of told how on fire everything is, and there's skeletons falling out of closets, and you can feel like, oh, I'm in a terrible position. But I think that happens to a lot of people. So I'd just be interested in, what were your immediate kind of things you had to do when you came into the role versus the kind of stuff you're doing now?
Sure. Firstly, I need to say here that the growth that we achieved in recent years is not only a product of good SEO practices, but it is also thanks to our fantastic marketing team and all brand building strategies and support of all the channels as well, like social or Google Shopping, emails, and a good digital mix is really helping SEO in the long term. So it wasn't only SEO as such. Good question. It does bring lots of memories. I suppose when I arrived back in 2014, we were undergoing a site migration from an old platform to a newer one at the time. So at the time, there was no in-house SEO expertise, and the new website was fairly basic. There was loads of development work to be done at the start, and nobody really had know-how. When I arrived, so we had to implement the language tags, as we had 2 versions of the website. I remember UK, we still do, UK and Irish one. There was no canonicalization in place on homepages, facets, pagination. Meta descriptions were pulling in a full product descriptions at default, and duplications, no product schema. Irish pages were indexed in UK, and all sorts of issues like that had to be addressed.
So there was lots of opportunity there for
absolutely,
you.
absolutely. Yeah, so there was lots of low-hanging fruits to fix. So yeah, it was a busy time. So yeah, it took a while to optimize that website that was actually SEO friendly. You had to build all those basics in terms of technical SEO. So once we had that groundwork done, we then built in reporting and trained the staff to ensure we had some SEO quality checks for any new ongoing content. And then we moved to content optimization. And then a while later, after all this, we decided to upgrade the website again to even bigger and newer version of Hybris, which this is the platform we use today. So that was another full-blown site migration to the totally new platform. But luckily, we managed to migrate all SEO value. There was no disasters there. And to be honest,
that was luck, was it?
Well, Google didn't even notice that we switched the website, so it was a great success.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Advice to any newcomers to the role like that, I suppose, you need to take ownership of the work and look at the bigger picture, and be brave, I suppose. And it's hard sometimes when you're new to communicate your ideas, and be brave enough to go off and shout about this. But it is important that you do, and don't be scared. Be brave to go and address all those things that you think are important to the business and will make a dent. So yeah, that will be my advice. Today, I suppose our technical SEO is in a good shape, so we can concentrate efforts on content upgrades. Apart from all those things I mentioned earlier, we try to work on maintaining and improving the current content that we have on the website. So I guess we're lucky that we have lots of tools these days, like Ahrefs or Content King, that we can get into a real nitty-gritty of content management and spot all those little things that affect rankings. You can imagine that with a big site like ours, fixing little things at scale on a regular basis can bring great results, and I suppose that shows in our stats.
It was interesting. Well, not interesting. I think it's right that you prefaced your earlier answer with increasing rankings being a team effort, like you say, and there's lots of things that directly and indirectly affect the SEO work you're doing. And the thing I'd like to focus on as well, and I just want to reiterate for, I guess, people moving into new roles, is this thing you said about kind of being brave to suggest things. So to give a real example, this week I was speaking to someone at quite a large company, and they were asking us to essentially help them with some analytics type analysis on how their site's performing. And it very quickly became apparent that despite it being a large company, there was no kind of goal or event tracking at all set up on the whole site.
Wow.
And this, we were still pushed to, can we do this work anyway? And the conversation kind of went along the lines of, look, you need to essentially go back to the people who are asking you to do your job, and you don't have to necessarily, you don't have to stamp your feet or demand anything, but you can ask them, if you're being tasked to increase X, Y, or Z and you're not allowed to measure it, what do they kind of suggest that we do? Because it's a business-wide problem, this problem, and we've given them the ability and information to kind of go and deliver that message internally now. And I think that's a really common thing, especially for people that are newer in roles, are maybe pushed into doing things that aren't optimal or aren't the right way. So I really appreciate what you're saying there about, if you need something to get a job done, it can be better long term if you're kind of honest about that and lay it out in a polite way, like you've said there.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, take the ownership, and you will be actually surprised that people will take your suggestion to consideration, because it is important to the business. after all.
So
Yeah.
last week we spoke to Lily Ray, and we spoke to her about patents. She'd done some work with Bill Swaski about patents and ranking factors, and we had some fun kind of speculating on what Google may or may not be using as ranking factors now and in the future. And we covered there a few points that kind of the nuance that people sometimes miss when we talk about ranking factors, which is things like, there's going to be factors that are specific, for instance, for certain search verticals. Like the easiest one I can think of is, in Google's kind of news results, freshness is really, really important, right? It's almost chronological, the stuff you see in the news results. So I'm interested on your thoughts, feelings, speculations. I'm not going to ask for evidence or challenge, just your feeling on what's important in terms of e-commerce sites for ranking. Is it schema? Is it links? Is it technical? What's really important to get sites ranking nowadays for e-commerce sites?
Yeah, good question. Surely for every vertical is different, and different rules will apply to rankings, as you just said about the news. Not even that, different format or type of content would matter more or less across different industry. E-commerce is no different. Moreover, it is a unique case altogether. It's hard to apply, for example, long format content like blogs to e-commerce. People, intent is slightly different. People are there visiting those websites to buy rather than read. So people are interested more in price, product features, quality of the images, age specification or product description, delivery options. So it's they come to buy and they more interact with this kind of content rather than something long format to read as such. So we need to think about this and provide them with this kind of content in order to convert them. For us, for example, gift finder or store locator would be those assets that do collect links, and they have lots of interest for us, obviously, because they tend to be popular because they help people to buy things, right? So on principle, this is good content, more guides. We do a lot of good guides, especially in nursery department. We have guides on travel systems, car seats, baby monitors, on mattresses. But all this content helps them buy things, right? So it makes purchase a little bit more easier. Gift finder, obviously, it kind of builds to people who don't really know what they're looking for. So we try to help them, push them towards the conversion a little bit, better, I suppose. So again, those things wouldn't work in other spaces, right? And long format wouldn't work for e-commerce. So this is slightly different for us. Other kind of factors that matter for us, I see traffic being a factor, right? There is a clear correlation between traffic and rankings, and we are seasonal business, as you can imagine. Our traffic spikes a lot this time of the year, so we see rankings follow suit. Perhaps this is not the case for all the verticals as well. I don't know. I know Google said that there is no correlation between the two, but stats show a different picture. Perhaps our listeners could provide some insights on this.
To pull this apart, what we're saying is you're saying maybe at peak times when, basically essentially at peak times when your searches are going up, you're finding your rankings are improving. Is that basically what you're saying?
That's right. Yeah, the more that's what I've seen over the years. The more traffic we drive to the website, the more traffic we get. The better.
So that's really interesting, because one thing, so we've just been through Halloween, and Halloween's been a really good example for me about how Google is adjusting the search results based on, I think, that the type of intent. So the thing I noticed about Halloween search results are through much of the year, they are informational type results about Halloween and
Yeah.
where it came from and stuff like that. And then in the kind of few weeks run up to Halloween, it becomes heavily dominated by e-commerce type of sites.
Yeah.
And I think this makes perfect sense from a search engine point of view, because Google understands, well, actually the intent has shifted now and people want to buy things. So do you think that's possibly what's causing that correlation with a site like yours, like an e-commerce type site, say coming up to Black Friday to Christmas? Google knows actually around these kind of searches, people are more switched on. They want to spend money, they want to buy. So it might be your site as opposed to, I don't know, kind of a publication that's writing about gift guides.
Yeah, absolutely. I see those dynamics all the time, not even towards the Christmas time, but sometimes you see that on much smaller categories where when there is a concept and the products are not there yet, but you have lots of video content on YouTube. And if you search for those concepts, you would get obviously video format, listings. And once we bring to the market the products, obviously that whole intent changes, and Google adjusts the searches, the SERP pages, and brings up more transactional listings, and then obviously the video content goes down to the page 2. So yeah, that happens all the time, and it's definitely a factor. Obviously, Google has lots of intelligence and a lot of I suppose technology to gauge all this and what people search for, and adjust SERP pages towards that. So yeah, intent is definitely interesting and fascinating thing altogether. Yeah.
The gifts thing as well. I don't know if you saw it. It was actually the tip I did on LinkedIn today was around e-commerce and gifting, and I don't know if you'd seen it, because it was pretty much nail on the head what you said there about the type of content and intent. So we've been talking to various clients who are in e-commerce and not just sticking, the word gifts on their category pages, because we're understanding that maybe the person who's buying the gift for the Star Trek fan doesn't actually know that much about Star Trek. So when they're searching for gifts, they actually want some content that steers them towards, well, actually, Discovery is the new series, so they might like this, they might like this. And unless you are like just a gifting site, I think that understanding where that difference is really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, there's a huge opportunity that there's so much searches for gift related keywords across the whole spectrum of internet, really. So yeah, it's very interesting niche up there.
So I'd like to talk to you as well about the kind of more into the future of e-commerce, because there's all kinds of interesting things happening in the background that we've covered before on the podcast. So the main ones for me are earlier this year, it might have been about a year ago now, Google made some initial announcements around specifically their fashion search engine result pages and the changes they were making to how they will show results for fashion searches. So rather than just showing some paid ads at the top and then listing websites, they actually wanted to essentially just collate feeds. And again, this runs in parallel with what Google's been doing with opening up the Merchant Center feeds now. So you can be included organically for free, and producing this experience that we've talked about a little bit, which is, I feel, trying to go head to head with Amazon, because Amazon's got that advantage at the moment of, you go to it, you do a search and all the products are there kind of on one platform. You can choose, you can buy. The disadvantage of doing product searches on Google is it's different websites, different experiences, different logins, different user interfaces. Whereas if Google can start to understand these products, categorize them, filter them for you, and if you can buy directly, maybe through Google, so we've seen that integration happening with Shopify and Google, being able to purchase directly kind of from the SERP. I'm interested on, where do you think that's going to go? Because it's not here yet, is it? This isn't happening quite yet. Where do you think it's going to go? And is this something that ecom SEO people should be planning in long term for? What should they be thinking? What should they be doing technology strategy wise? I know it's a huge question, but take a stab at it for me.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big shift, I think, but it is still in a very early stage. And I haven't, apart from surfaces, obviously, I haven't seen anything significant in terms of UI. But yeah, Google is trying to get back Amazon's advertising business and reverse, I suppose, the trend where users default to Amazon for transactional queries. They start their product search on Amazon, and obviously Amazon is cleaning up on the commissions, bringing all those ads at the top. I suppose also Amazon's surge in ad revenue in the recent years created a threat for Google, and I suppose they need to defend their turf and address this issue before it grows too large for them. Similar as they managed to beat Facebook back in the days, which worked very well for them, and by creating new formats, ad formats, and all the features, they managed to push them back. So yeah, it is very interesting, and it's definitely a pushback against Amazon. To be honest, it could be actually beneficial to all the parties. It is kind of, they're trying to create an ecosystem, a marketplace, if you like, with a wide range of products and merchants. So that in turn is likely to increase their own revenue and create more monetization opportunities for them. And also will bring more users, and perhaps in the long term will change the behavior where people start product searches on Amazon. In short term, it's a kind of gamble from Google, and I bet they didn't factor the pandemic to be around for so long, but that could actually work well for them, as many merchants are forced to move online, and free advertising is definitely an attractive option. Overall, I think it's good for consumers, that's for sure. Given the shopping is visual experience, and this is exactly what we're getting from Google. So it might turn to be experience with no loss to any party. In a very similar way, when you put two big shops together, both being together, attract more business to both parties. So how can you plan for it? I suppose if you have a very good SEO in place, there is not much more you have to do as such. I suppose the same variables will apply if you have good authority and trust. If you're a good brand, you will show up. There's a bit of trust going on there with reviews. I suppose the brands should really focus on bringing more reviews to the products, and it is a good window for smaller businesses. With those businesses that don't really have a feed yet, so this is opportunity for them to be featured over there.
I certainly see it as an opportunity actually for smaller businesses. Mm-hmm. So the ones that don't have very good e-com sites, where maybe the purchasing could be done through Google and they can just deliver them a feed essentially.
Yeah.
And like you say, the consumer might benefit then from a wider, more diverse inventory to buy from. Yeah, but like yourselves, established people that have been doing SEO, if you've got all the technical stuff in place, there's maybe not a huge amount to change. And I think it's good to know and discuss that. I've always said, we had these stats going around in 2019 saying like 50% of searches were going to be done by voice by 2020. Yeah. And, all these articles being published about what you need to do to be prepared for voice search, and it turns out actually we didn't really need to do anything, pretty much, because, Google's not trying to match exactly what people are searching for with a voice query to, the title of a page. It just doesn't work like that. And I think we can expect the same with these UI changes for people that have already got this kind of feeds and everything set up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't really know where is it going to go. It could be a fad as well as voice was. Maybe it is a beginning of something much more substantial in terms of a war between Amazon and Google. We don't know that yet. I suppose we don't really have much stats. Everything is kind of very early stage. And, I would like to give it a few months and collect some stats and see actually if people are interested in those listings at all. Don't forget that, the proper Google Shopping ads are still going to show up at the top, and it's very likely that
they're not going anywhere.
it's very likely that you would have to actually bid more to be closer to the top to clean up on sales. So it's hard to know how people will interact with those free ads. Let's see.
Well,
see.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, let's wait and see.
So the other thing I wanted to pick your brains very quickly about, we've already gone over half an hour here, is about automation. So we've had a few chats with people about various types of automation. I've advised people sometimes spending a long time writing meta descriptions isn't the best use of their time, especially when Google's replacing them a lot of the time, or if they're not even on the first page. How much kind of priority should be given to manually writing a meta description. A couple of episodes ago, we talked about the Microsoft Image AI that can be used to generate alt tags for images automatically. And I'm just wondering what, if any, what kind of automation are you using? How big a part does that play in your SEO, your technical SEO? And again, what do you see being automated over the next few years?
In terms of meta descriptions, definitely it's not a ranking factor anymore, but it is still a snippet that people can use to leverage, use it for click-throughs. So what we do is we pass, commercial messages through our meta descriptions. If we have any special offers going on, for example, free shipping over a certain amount of order, or open account, get free shipping, whatever that might be, we try to, place it into a meta description. So we don't really use that anymore as a ranking factor as such, but as rather a click-through factor, and trying to get our message across and show it to people in Google. And yeah, I am a big fan of automation. We try to automate as much as possible on the website, especially when you work with a big website like ours. It's really not possible to keep up everything manually. In terms of images, yeah, I've seen that. That's really, really interesting. And I think that is going to open up again yet another source, yet another surface for e-commerce or any other website to show up in Google and feature in Google. It's hard to know where this is going to go. Again, there's very little stats on that and how this technology is going to be used. But it's definitely very interesting. And I suppose this is Google trying to find the ways to connect all the dots across the whole internet, which becomes very, very sophisticated. And, you can be found in many different spots across the internet. So recognizing the image and connecting images to different surfaces, I suppose, it is definitely a work towards connecting all the dots and figuring out who is what on internet and what kind of authority they hold. Yeah,
I do wonder for things like automatically tagging the alt tag on an image, how long it would be until this is almost a standard feature of things like Shopify, where they just have, or even WooCommerce, where there's a plugin that connects to a cloud service that can just offer that. So it can, you can upload your 1,000 photos and it will give it its best attempt at just automatically tagging them for you, and you can manually review them, because these are the things that everyone should do. They get left out, especially it's bad, especially for accessibility reasons, but it does get missed, or it's I've seen when alt tags are done, even humans don't always do a very good job. Maybe they haven't got kind of the right guidelines, and it's a long task which, to be very frank, a lot of the time has very little impact on the bottom line.
Yeah,
So rightly or wrongly, it gets deprioritized.
that's it.
So it'd be interesting seeing how these things develop, like you say.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose it will depend on how important it is for your business, for your website to have this in place. I'm guessing, images and the traffic from images and conversions from image traffic would be more or less important to different websites. Yeah.
I think it's a good solution as well, because obviously there's laws about accessibility as well. And, I think, alt tags for me, the SEO is secondary, like primarily it's there as we know, for an accessibility thing. So it'd be good as well if we've got solutions that can ensure this greater accessibility to content anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And like many things, the SEO is the cherry on top. So finally, if we finish off, Roman, I know I'm taking a lot of your time here. What one thing or what two things do you think e-commerce businesses should be focusing on now as we come up to this peak season of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas?
Yeah, a hard question in 2020, I would like to say a few words about small business, because we always tend to talk about big brands across the internet, and we never talk, and we always forget about small businesses that were very, very hurt this year because of the lockdowns, and those guys, very small shops uptown with no visibility online and no tech, expertise, no resources. And all of a sudden they were faced with shops being closed and no other avenue of, to generate business. So for them, I would like to say that they need to get online as quickly as possible. They need to leverage technology like Shopify. I mean, this is we have now technology on the tip of our fingers. Shopify is up there. It takes very little effort, very little expertise to get yourself set up online, list out your stock, try to bring in some revenue, leverage social media, let people know that you are online. Obviously, because you had to close the shop, that doesn't mean that you lost your customers. The customers are out there. Reach out to them and let them know that you are online and you still have stock to sell. And this is more important than ever in 2020. Now is the time. As we spoke about Google services, the shopping is now free, so take advantage of that. I know it's a lot of a bit more of technical work involved to get your feet up and running, but perhaps you can look into this and take advantage of that. It's free, it's out there, and this is why it's there, to help people like you. For bigger brands, it will be very challenging to stay in stock. So my advice would be try to stay in stock and try to deliver the promise. If obviously there's a lot of bits and pieces across the way, being in stock is one of them, but try to deliver a good service and live up to the promise. And good luck, I suppose.
Good advice. In addition to that, if you have a look at the show notes for this episode, which will be at search.withcandor.co.uk, I will put links into episode 56 and episode 57. So in episode 56, we spoke to e-commerce expert Luke Carthy, who covered some specific small businesses can do to optimize their e-commerce site. And episode 57 was with e-commerce SEO Christina Azarenko, who talked about getting started on platforms like WooCommerce and Shopify. Like Roman here has said, there's lots of options now to get set up really quickly. There are plugins you can use to generate feeds and stuff that should be able to get you going. Roman, thank you. Really appreciate that. It's been super interesting. We've gone on for 45 minutes.
Wow. Thank you, Mark, for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We will be back in 1 week's time, which will be Monday, the 16th of November. So if you do enjoy the podcast, please do subscribe, share an episode with a friend, or if you are an SEO, why not link to us? Have a brilliant week and hope you'll tune in next week as well.